Complete tutorial on how to invest in XTB. This is one of the platforms that I have been most frequently requested to create a comprehensive step-by-step investment tutorial for, so this content will likely be quite extensive because I am going to try to provide you with as much value as possible with each step thoroughly completed, especially for Colombians and Latin Americans. In the description, I will leave the minutes for each section in case you want to navigate to a specific section, so let's get started. Clearly, the initial part is how to register and log into this platform. In the description, I will leave a link for you to visit the page, but I recommend that you do not create your account from this section that appears here. Instead, I will also leave this link here so you can generate a bonus. How this works is based on deposit amounts, so if you deposit between $50 and $4.99, you would receive $50 from $500 to $4,999. You get a benefit of $100, and then if you deposit more than $5,000, you get a benefit of $200 for new clients exclusively. Remember that. Once you are here, click where it says create account. Now, let's wait for it to load, and here it says open a real account. Then in the email section, we input any email address we have, and by any, I really mean a primary one, because when you receive notifications, that's where all the codes, updates, promotions, and everything will arrive. So we put it here, and then in the country section, we specify exactly where we are located, in this case, Colombia, and we accept the terms and conditions for the processing of personal data, that the data will be processed, and consent if they want to be contacted by XTB. I highly recommend this because on some occasions they provide us, as I mentioned, offers, discounts, completely free classes, education, and several other things. So we put the email here and click next, and we are going to set our password and click next. Now I think I do not need to explain this in depth, but you simply put your name, then in the title if you are male or female, and then the name specifically, second name if you have one, last name, your phone number, your date of birth, the country of nationality, and then the FATCA declaration, which means you are not a US citizen if you are not, because if you are, you will have to provide other information here. So you put it there, and then specific data such as your annual net income, which is set in dollars, savings amount, liquid investments you have, the amount you plan to invest during this year, the main source of income and savings you have, meaning whether it's a job, that is an employment contract or a similar contract, or if you directly have an inheritance or profitability from another savings and investment, and you put it here. Once you complete these data, we click next. So let me complete them quickly, and we click next. Now they request our precise address, and remember that if you entered any inaccurate information or believe you need to modify it, you simply click the back button here and make the necessary change. Then you need to specify the currency. In this case, it only permits dollars, and the language of your preference, in this case, Spanish. Then if you possess a referral code, we will input CHECHO here directly, which is my referral code in case you wish to utilize it, and then you click next once more. Subsequently, we are required to accept all the terms and conditions in order to successfully create our account, and then click next once more. It will then express gratitude for your interest in XTB, and you will have officially established your account. So we simply wait, click on access your account, and that concludes the process. Now, once you have successfully established your account, you must proceed to the subsequent step before you can begin investing, which is of utmost importance because brokers that are well established will invariably require it. And that is document verification. For this, when we log into our account, this section will appear, verify your documents. Here we click where it says verify account, and it will load the section, so we simply wait. What we need to do, I won't show you, but it's simply a video verification by sending a photo of the document. So we click here, accept and continue, and here we need to verify with our data. We'll do this from our phone, so we choose Android or iOS, in this case iOS. Below we enter our phone number to receive a link to complete the verification. Always remember to have your identification document handy, whether it's your ID card or DNI or whatever you call it, and also your passport, or rather if you want, your passport can be either one, and make sure your phone's camera is working well, not damaged, stained or dirty, to take photos and videos of our documents. Once you've verified your account, we move on to the next step, which is precisely the deposit. To deposit, at the bottom left, when we log into our account, we click on deposit withdrawal, and here deposit funds will appear. Then we click on deposit funds, and all these options will appear. Here we need to choose the option we prefer for Colombia. Personally, I prefer either Visa or MasterCard, meaning depositing directly with a card or directly with PSE, which is the last option. Either of the two is the best. In this case, we'll show how it would be done through PSE. You click here on this last option and it will start loading the option to deposit. Here your destination account appears, meaning the account to which you will deposit, and then you put how much you will deposit in dollars. Let's imagine you will deposit $500. Remember, if you are going to deposit more than 3,000, you have to upload certain corresponding documents here. You simply click upload and upload the documents. Let's click here to deposit these $500, and what it will do is load our data here, and then it will show how much this is in Colombian pesos, because we remember that PS is a local deposit method. In the client type, we put a natural person, or well, also legal if in your case it is legal, and in the list of banks, you specifically choose the bank from which you will deposit. Once you have chosen it, for example, Banco de Occidente, you click on Pay, and it automatically redirects you to the bank's webpage to log in and complete the payment process. As soon as you make the payment, typically within a few minutes, a maximum of 5, the funds will be transferred to your XTB account and will appear here at the bottom where it indicates available capital. Once you have the available capital, we proceed to the subsequent step. And what is the next step? Well, it's directly learning how to invest. How do I invest within this platform? So I'm going to show you step by step. Here we find ourselves, this is the platform interface for making investments. What we are going to accomplish is also to comprehend this interface a little more thoroughly, and we will examine it from the left side towards the right side. Initially, on the left-hand side, we have all the various assets in which we have the opportunity to invest. For instance, in the popular section, we have what is being traded the most at this particular moment, and we can view them categorized by sector. For example, here we have currencies, which refers to Forex, and we can also search by indices. However, once you make the decision to invest, you simply come here and select what you wish to invest in. The majority of individuals will likely invest in stocks, ETFs, and more. For instance, let's consider stocks, and what we do here is search by symbol, meaning by ticker or by the full name of the stock. Let's suppose we are going to invest in Amazon. We can search exactly like that, Amazon, or the other option is to search by ticker, which is very similar. It's AMZN and it will appear there. Once you find it, you simply click on it, and here we can invest, and what we are going to do is click on buy, but at this moment it doesn't allow us because we are outside of the investment hours. So in this case, we won't be able to do it, but what we can do is look for the alternative of this stock, because I specifically chose the one from Germany, but we can choose the one from the United States, and in this one, it does allow us to invest because we are within the investment hours. So observe, here it displays what you're interested in investing in, then you would confirm here, and if you have the funds available, you proceed to invest. However, prior to that, we definitely need to configure what we intend to do. So what precisely do I intend to accomplish here? I wish to make an investment in a stock, specifically Amazon, which currently holds a market price of $186. Consequently, what I am able to do is specify here that I desire to invest, and then proceed to invest that specific amount of $186 directly. Nonetheless, if I choose not to invest here by dollars, which means by a specific monetary amount, I can click on this arrow right here. I'll zoom in so you can clearly observe where it states change to volume. And here what we are going to do is invest by the number of shares. So if I wish for 5 shares, I input 5 here, and it will automatically load that I'm going to purchase 5 for $931.95. I click here to buy, and a new interface will appear, market order, and it directly displays the volume, which is 5 shares, and what it will cost me in the end. In this case, the commission is 0 because we remember that XTB doesn't charge a commission until after $100,000 or euros. We click here to confirm, and that's it. We make the purchase, and that's how we invest directly within the XTB platform, specifically on the website. I mentioned this about the website because we also have the XTB application that can be downloaded from the App Store, Play Store, and you can invest directly from your mobile phone. If you want us to make a separate tutorial just for the app, leave it in the comment section and I'll see how interested you are, and we'll make a tutorial 100% dedicated to the app, teaching how to buy directly and simply a stock, an ETF, anything you want. But we need to go a little further, understand the XTB interface and this platform called XStation 5. So let's understand the XTB interface. Well, here we find ourselves, and as I previously mentioned, we have everything meticulously organized by the type of asset. You can specifically search for whatever you wish to invest in. Let's suppose we come here once more and we're going to select a stock. As I stated earlier, you can click buy, and well, this is something I've already explained, but let's delve a bit further to comprehend this section here. We have various buttons that will assist us in performing a range of tasks. First of all, let's click on this initial one, which resembles an exclamation mark. When we click there, it will provide us with direct information about this asset. It will tell us its name, which appears here, and then what its objective is, or so to speak, what it is dedicated to. In this case, this specific ETF informs us that it endeavors to replicate the performance of the FTSE index and everything listed here by investing in listed real estate companies and REITs in developed European countries. This specifically informs us of its market schedule because remember, with XTB, we can have stocks in different exchanges and each exchange can have its specific schedule. It would tell us when we can invest in this. Then in essential data, the type of asset, which in this case is an ETF, the currency it is in, which is in euros, where we would be making the exchange, which would be in Frankfurt. The minimum order size, meaning the minimum we could invest, €1, then the leasing, which is an identifying code, then short selling, if it is enabled or not. In this case, it is disabled. Remember, if we want to do this, we could do it in other ways, but in this case, it doesn't allow us. Then net assets, which in this case is also known as in this case, is $559.49 million. And in this case, also the price, or rather the commission that would be charged for investing, and the type of ETF or distribution it has, which in this case is accumulation. Then in this case, it tells us that the limit, as I mentioned earlier, we have is €100,000 without commission. But since I haven't exceeded it yet, in fact, I am far from exceeding it, it tells us that we are free of commissions. You might say, well, but here it doesn't say 0.4. Remember that this 0.4 is associated with the ETF, but this here refers to XTB's buying and selling commissions, which in this case we wouldn't have. Then the commission above €100,000, in case we have them, will be 0.2% with a minimum commission of €10. Then, if we are interested, in case this ETF or the stock we choose has dividends, it will appear here. In fact, to be able to set this up, let's look for a dividend ETF. So let's search for dividend here so that a specific dividend ETF appears. Let's click here again, and here it appears. Then in 2025, the expiration date, the dividend date, and the value per share, which in this case would be approximately 9 euro cents, and the dates on which it has been delivered year by year historically. So, as you can see, for example, this one has been around since 2009. Then over here in risk and performance, we have the statistics of this specific ETF, but as I tell you, this will change depending on the stock and ETF we have, and these are already terminologies or specific concepts that, well, we could look at in another video. Then in ESG, environmental, scientific, and governance criteria, this has gained a lot of strength recently because there are people who no longer invest for the sake of returns or the future, or even companies that don't invest for this but invest directly for these criteria. And only, for example, there are ETFs dedicated 100% to investing in companies that have high scores in these criteria. Then holdings, this will appear if it is an ETF, as you see here. What does this mean? Why sectors and why stocks constitute this ETF? For instance, this ETF, these are its primary stocks, the ones that are displayed here, and then the main sectors. So the principal sector is financial services, basic materials, then real estate, industrials, and others. If we desire to view more detailed information about this, it is advisable to search for it on Yahoo, or indeed it mentions here on Morningstar that there it appears in greater detail what this 78% corresponds to and what this 22% corresponds to, providing us with extensive detail. But, well, once we've reviewed this, let's proceed to the subsequent step. And for instance, over here, once we've examined this information icon, we now advance to this next one, which is this plus sign that appears here, and it's a new order. what it will accomplish is open a specific window, let's say a bit more advanced compared to what we find in this section on the left, which I demonstrated to you earlier. For this, you will enter here, and specifically, as I was explaining to you, you will proceed to buy either by volume or by a specific monetary amount, either in euros or dollars. So for instance, in dollars, if I input $50, let's adjust it here. I'll bring it a bit closer so you can view it better. If I input $50 here, it then informs me that in euros, in this instance, this instrument that is in euros would be 43.71, and in volume, I would be purchasing specifically or investing specifically in 9 shares of this ETF. And here, well, the commission that would correspond, for instance, let's perform a larger calculation. For instance, if we are going to invest $120,000, it would then inform us how much it would correspond to in euros and then the volume of shares of this ETF that I would be acquiring. And here, notice that it corresponds to a commission of $11.67. And remember, this is based on the fact that we are already investing more than $100,000. Then the currency that is, and then this USD topic, which is something very important that not many take into account, is that obviously if you invest in a European ETF, the conversion has to be made, so the equivalence is made and a commission of 0.5% is included, and here you execute the purchase at once. Regarding the selling aspect, short selling is not permitted because, as previously mentioned, this option is not available. However, if desired, we can place a market order that is visible here, or alternatively, we can switch to a stop or limit order to specify a particular price if preferred. In the prior ETF, it was not possible because its trading hours were closed, thus preventing buying at that moment. What we will do is transition to this DCC from the United States, which is currently open. The price is displayed again, and now we can set an expiration date. If the purchase of this ETF at this price is executed, but if it doesn't get executed, it will expire on this specific date and won't be carried out. So what you can do is, if you see that the ETF is currently at $505.88 and you anticipate it will decrease, you can set it to, for instance, $500. When this order is accepted, you automatically obtain the number of shares you desire, for example, 500 of this ETF, which corresponds to $250,000. And notice that here it's not doing the currency conversion because this instrument is directly in dollars. But anyway, there you have it, $250,000, 500 shares. Subsequently, the price is evidently at $500. However, in this situation, we would need to wait for the market's behavior to determine if it is feasible to execute this operation or not. Then over here, we proceed with these buttons we observed here. In this particular instance, we have the subsequent button, which is to open the detailed chart. So what you do is select the specific action you desire or the ETF you prefer, click on this, and here automatically on the right side, you will have the options to view the chart in detail and its present behavior. Certainly, I will not exclude this segment, but here we possess the entire section of tools and indicators to effectively emphasize in the event we wish to conduct an analysis of this action with Fibonacci. Along with the indicators, we also have available up here that we can specifically search for, the ones we typically feel comfortable with for trading. Therefore, we simply incorporate them, and here we furnish our particular configuration that we desire. We apply it, and subsequently, we will observe all the indicators we wish applied, correct? Nevertheless, in the situation where we desire to eliminate them, we merely select them here, and at the lower section, we click on this X and they are promptly erased. The identical concept applies to rectangles or any illustrations we can generate within the chart, such as ellipses, triangles, etc., or specifically sketching lines as we prefer. We just right-click on them and choose Delete, and they are immediately removed. This is to maintain the chart organized, so it's something to keep in mind. Another crucial element is that within this platform, at the lower section, we already have multiple charts open by default. For example, we have gold here along with other ETFs. You can open these and they will be preserved here in case you wish to engage in trading daily without losing all the organization you've established. They are loaded here by default as you open them, like this VOO1. However, I skipped a bit here on the left side and there's this section with a star which signifies favorites. So if you have certain preferred assets that you want to check daily or weekly and don't want to keep entering here and searching for them, you simply mark them with the star. In the top left where it says favorites, these will appear. The ones that appear here are by default, so if you wish, you can unmark them. In this case, I'll leave them and let's proceed with the VOO, We'll continue searching for it here, and as I mentioned, the star is disabled if you want to remove it from the group. Instead of a star, a trash bin icon appears. You click there and it removes it. You can also add it to specific watch lists, but you need to create them first. So you click here to create a new watch list, assign it a name. For example, you can name it growth ETFs, then you add growth ETFs, and you only have that list to follow. Then you can look for blockchain ETFs and only add those here, and so on. You create a list and gradually observe how those stocks and ETFs you selected are performing, so you don't have to search for them individually each time. You'll have a list that serves that purpose. Then on the right side in the search section, if you click on this icon here, you can modify the interface a bit. It might be slightly better, more advanced, and with more detail. Here you'll see the lowest value during the day, the daily variation it has experienced, the sprint it has, and the highest it has been during the day, which was 506.47. It started practically at the lowest of 499.73, and at this moment we could say it's performing well for the day, but we couldn't say the same for the euro against the dollar, which is this CFD here. However, once we comprehend this topic of the charts, we have all the tools available here. At the top, we could also search if we don't want to search here to invest, but just to examine a chart. What we can do is click where the name appears, and you can search, for example, Tesla through a CFD. You click and it will specifically load the chart. If you want to purchase where the number is, you just add how many shares you want to buy, for example, 123, just as an example. You click the green color that appears here and it shows you the amount you will buy, the volume, and the amount of money you would end up paying for this specific stock. Then there's the stop loss and take profit, which is when you configure your entry. If you go to a specific figure and are trading, you can configure it there. Here it's more advanced to configure the stop loss and take profit directly through the chart. Then if you also want to change the design of the candles and what's appearing here and how you want it to appear, for example, if you want it to appear in candles, it shows like this. If you want it in lines, it shows like this, and you can change it according to your strategy, how you want to set it. If the chart is too far with a mouse, you can zoom in with the wheel. If not, if it doesn't work for some reason, you click the plus to zoom in or the minus to zoom out. Then you can arrange it in a way you prefer, move it from left to right, move the data. This depends a lot on what you need and see as necessary. Remember, this literally functions like a web browser. What do I mean by this? As you open things, for example, here I can click more, I can open the investment plan, and I can be closing them. So the positions, for example, I close it here and that's it. This pending orders one I also close, and here it remains empty. If I want to add something, I simply click more, and here I can add any of these things. The same at the top where we see the news, calendar, market analysis, training, and account history. Let's assume I opt not to retain the account history section here. In that scenario, I open it and click on the X to remove it. I can adjust this to simplify the interface substantially. By the way, I believe this doesn't necessitate an extensive explanation since it's quite straightforward to understand from the titles themselves. In the news section, we essentially discover market-related news, and indeed, here you have the capability to search directly within this segment. For instance, you can input Tesla, and news articles pertinent to Tesla will emerge on a day-by-day basis, such as on this particular date. Subsequently, you can precisely observe what is transpiring with a highly detailed summary indeed. I mean, all the statistics are meticulously presented here, so what you can effortlessly do if you prefer not to invest on a specific day and merely wish to stay informed is to access the platform, navigate to the news section, and peruse all this information in detail to ascertain how the market is performing. In the calendar section, we observe significant dates such as the announcement of inflation metrics in the United States, including long-term inflation expectations for April, along with the precise dates when these events will transpire. This information is organized by date, and you have the option to filter directly by country if you desire, or by a specific day, for instance, this week. Consequently, for this week, all the events that have occurred or are anticipated to occur, or for the upcoming week, the events that will also be present are displayed, enabling you to be considerably more informed. Additionally, the dividend dates are listed depending on the stock, organized on a day-by-day basis, so you are aware of which ones are forthcoming. You can also conduct a search here by specific symbol, meaning by a particular stock, to ascertain the relevant information. Then market analysis. These are comprehensive analyses conducted regarding stocks or ETFs or any asset where they provide us with the evaluation it possesses and the average it maintains. So, well, the risk, apologies, it possesses, and in this particular case, it would be the average, which is this ETF appearing here. And what you have the capability to do is filter if you desire to locate a specific asset, then by commodities, equities, fixed income, or by other regions, depending on where you wish it to be, Africa, Asia, Europe, etc. The specific markets, whether they are developed, emerging, or a combination, or if this doesn't directly apply, and then the assets under management, these stocks or these ETFs that are visible here. In this case, it's within this ETF search engine that's displayed here. Well, you can search here, or if you prefer, you can also specifically search for stocks, and the same information appears: market capitalization and several additional indicators to facilitate your search, as well as all the countries to determine if you're targeting a specific country or a particular sector. Then in the heat map, we find on a general level a map, as its name implies, where we can observe these currencies and how they are performing over a month-long period. But if we wish, we can switch to US stocks to view precisely the same thing, and then European stocks exactly the same, how they are performing. For instance, at this moment, we observe the situation with Nvidia, which hasn't been performing well in the past month. Let's see, in the last day, 3%. Well, it's progressing, but anyway, I get caught up in details. Let's proceed to the next section here in information, and this is precisely to acquire much more information about investing in XTB. So if you desire something more detailed than this video, you can go directly here. For example, intraday analysis, and here NVIDIA captures all the investors' attention, so you can view this report specifically, which is a video content, and here they will explain in detail why this is occurring. And well, you can be listening to experts directly from XTB discussing this. Then if you wish, also a weekly market outlook, so week by week you can be watching this, although they are somewhat outdated, but you can extract information from the past to see how this is analyzed. Then a course on Japanese candlesticks, which is what we observed earlier in the charts, so you can also end up comprehending it better. But well, here it already depends on what you wish to see. For example, look here, they are explaining the indicators and how to use them specifically, so it's also quite valuable information that you can utilize. And well, I believe this is nearly all the information, and you can add more elements here at the top as well as here at the bottom left. Then there are details that, well, it depends if you are interested or not, and it's at the top right where you can modify the configuration so that, for example, the assets don't appear on the left but on the right or at the bottom, or display this on the screen to load in this manner. So observe how it appears, and they remove all the stock topics from the left side, but if we prefer, we better leave it as the initial configuration that already depends. Then price alert. In this case, if you wish to set an alert for when an asset reaches a certain value, an instrument reaches a certain value, it sends you a notification to immediately enter the platform. Then we have notifications here in case we make a deposit, a withdrawal, there's a documentation notification or something similar, we can configure it here. Then on the right side, we have the connection status when trading, which is quite important, especially if we're there minute by minute. Then the account we have, so you can click there if you have multiple accounts, or if you wish, for example, to switch to a demo account, you enable it there and switch to the demo account to test. Then at the top right, we have this hamburger menu, these three lines for the trading section where we are currently located. Then the My Account section, settings, and log out to exit X definitively. But well, this is, let's say, the interface in broad strokes, but well, I've already explained all the important things, the tutorial within the platform itself, how to invest, the indicators, view the charts, directly buy a stock, buy an ETF, Forex, etc. Now let's move on to the final point, and that is when you have already made your moves, made your transactions. Let's say you have some profitability and want to withdraw an amount of money. How to withdraw from XTB? Let's observe. To initiate a withdrawal, once more we're situated here within the interface. We'll navigate to the upper right corner where it indicates My Account, and here you'll observe your personal details, your name and all that, which is obscured, and we'll select the button labeled Withdraw, which will lead us directly to the withdrawal section. However, if we prefer not to access this section because for some reason it doesn't appear or something similar, we proceed downward to the left to the prominent orange button, click there on Deposit Withdrawal, select where it states Withdraw Money, and we transition to a new page. I suggest this option because it opens a new page, it's more intuitive and easier to use. Thus, we have these three options initially, the first followed by the second and the third, which are Skrill and Neteller, and they are essentially identical. In fact, I believe Skrill owns Neteller or vice versa, Neteller owns Skrill, but fundamentally they end up being the same platform. What we need to bear in mind here is that it might be economical to withdraw funds from here, but when it comes to transferring money from Skrill or Neteller to bank accounts, it becomes very costly if we require this. If you actually utilize Skrill or Neteller for other purposes such as investments in other sites or possess a card linked with Skrill or Neteller, it might be worthwhile. If that's not your situation and you're going to directly transfer from Skrill or Neteller to your bank account, it will be quite expensive, which is why I do not recommend this option. Then there's the option of Visa or MasterCard, which is like returning the money to your card. However, in this case, I don't have the card verified, and honestly, I find the process a bit cumbersome because it gets returned, and then to withdraw it if you deposit it with a credit card or multiple cards, it's somewhat tedious. So I prefer to leave this option aside. And subsequently, we have the final two options, one of which I regard as the most advantageous, although some individuals might find it perplexing due to their nearly identical names: local bank account withdrawal and bank account withdrawal. Let's delve into the local bank account option. In this scenario, we must add a bank account in Colombia irrespective of the bank. The distinction, which we'll elaborate on later, is that one specifies local while the other does not. But initially, let's address the fees. I opted for a Bancolombia account, and here you determine the withdrawal amount. It informs us that the available limit is $5,000. This can be modified by submitting documentation and such, but we'll maintain it as is. Suppose we wish to withdraw $80 and it consistently incurs a 1% fee. Indeed, it is mentioned here in the commission section beneath the question mark icon where it specifies 1%. Now, clarifying the difference, with this initial option, the money is dispatched locally through a provider. That is, if we select the local option, the dollars are converted into Colombian pesos, and subsequently that money is deposited into your bank account in Colombian pesos. That's why it's deemed local. It's crucial to bear this in mind because depending on the withdrawal amount the fee will apply, it will invariably be 1%, but evidently there's a significant difference between withdrawing $80 and incurring an 80-cent charge compared to withdrawing $800, $900, $5,000, $10,000, or $20,000 as the 1% fee escalates accordingly. Now, we have an alternative option, which is withdrawal to a bank account without the inclusion of the word local. What does this signify? In this scenario, we will need to withdraw the funds to our bank account also situated in Colombia. However, the significant distinction is that this bank account is capable of receiving international transfers. Consequently, we will not receive this money in Colombian pesos directly, but rather in dollars, and subsequently, we will need to convert it into Colombian pesos. Herein lies a minor dilemma, and why is that? Because, well, if we withdraw, for example, $80 here, it will charge us $30 initially, and this will always apply for amounts less than $100 in general bank account withdrawals, not the local one, but in general. Now, what occurs if I deposit, for instance, $101? You will observe that the commission is zero, which indicates they are not charging me anything whatsoever. For many individuals, this would be the optimal choice, but there's a crucial detail to consider, which is that when you withdraw your funds, depending on the bank you select, the bank might impose various fees and commissions. This is not a promotional offer or anything similar. It's because I personally utilize it. Bancolombia is the most suitable bank for receiving international transfers in terms of commissions and even in the TRM or the quantity of pesos they provide per dollar, which is almost always above the market rate. Therefore, I recommend using Bancolombia, and if you don't have this bank, the nearest banks that are favorable for receiving international transfers are Davivienda, BVA, and Scotiabank Patria. However, the drawback is that these tend to have relatively high commissions. So here, we could say, well, they're not charging me anything, which is excellent because I withdraw $101, I receive $101, but when it reaches your bank, you'll have to pay commissions, fees, sometimes even taxes. And that's where we'll encounter the commission that XTB isn't charging us, as you can observe here, but the bank is. So it's something to bear in mind, and depending on the type of person you are, if you wish to receive the money in Colombian pesos as is or in dollars as is, you'll choose one option or the other. Well, let's proceed here to withdraw to a bank account. Remember, you can click here to add a new bank account. You add a bank account manually and you'll have to send documentation. So what you'll do here is enter the bank account number, which is precisely the number provided in a bank certificate, whether it's Bancolombia or any other bank. Here, you'll choose your specific bank. Ensure that the banks you select here do receive international transfers, because if not, the money may not reach your account. After this, you can select the account type, whether it's savings or checking, and then for currency, we'll leave it in dollars. The bank identification code BC is a SWIFT code, and you need to find it at the bank you're adding. Again, if your account doesn't have a SWIFT code and your bank doesn't provide this information, it means it can't receive international transfers, so you'll have to resort to a local bank account withdrawal. So as we see here, obviously, if you're withdrawing less than $100, the best option would be a local bank account withdrawal. If you don't have a bank that receives international transfers, then this is still the best option. But if you're withdrawing a larger amount, more than $100, this option might be much better, but only by withdrawing with Bancolombia. Withdrawing with other bank options may mean you have to bear costs that will lower your profitability if you're withdrawing money constantly or if you're withdrawing large amounts. And let us consider this as the ultimate option to withdraw within XTB, and the most suitable choices for me would be either of these two, only that, as I previously mentioned, it depends on your specific situation. Remember that one is local and the other is international, and the best option is Bancolombia if you have another bank. Well, I would think twice before making the withdrawal, and I believe it has been a quite comprehensive tutorial. Please inform me if there's anything I failed to mention and we will address it in an entirely separate video. I shall respond to all the inquiries you leave in the comments section. With that being said, I shall see you next time. I sincerely hope you found this content either helpful or enjoyable, one of the two. Please leave a dollar with wings emoji in the comments section. I will see you next time. Goodbye for now.